Content warning. This episode contains discussions about suicide and suicide awareness. If you or a loved one is struggling, you are not alone and help is available. Please call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or visit 988lifeline.org to chat with a trained counselor. Available 24/7. This episode of Between the Highs podcast is brought to you by Blushed Home Interiors.
Welcome to Between the Highs, life behind the logo. This isn't a podcast about overnight success. It's about the long road that came before it. Here we sit down with small business owners from our community and talk about the parts of life you don't see on social media. We talk about the hardships that changed them, the lessons that stayed, the things they wish they could go back and tell their younger selves. Because most of life doesn't happen at the peaks. It happens in between. That's where the real stories live. Between the highs. Life before the logo. Welcome back to Between the Highs. I'm Mac Ridgway with Ridgway Roofing. This is Reva Triantos with Blush by Reva. So Reva, in our first episode, we had gone over a lot of the hardships that you've endured, which has been really incredible. Your mom left you in a stroller when you were 3 years old and you were hit by a truck. Your parents were divorced. You're growing up without a mom or really any kind of mother figure at all in your life.
Yeah.
Your father gets diagnosed with cancer at 13. He passes away at 15. You're going through high school, basically couch surfing,
Yeah.
right? With different family members trying to avoid getting sucked into the system.
Yeah.
And then you have your first child. You have a baby boy at 18, living with your boyfriend. You guys go separate ways. And then you've gotten married, right, to a different person.
Right.
And where we left off, your husband at the time locked you out of your one-bedroom apartment, and you are sleeping in your car with your 2-year-old child, using T-shirts as diapers.
Yeah.
I remembered in the last episode you had said that this was kind of a God moment. A lady had left you a card and just said, "Please call me if you need me."
Yes.
Right? So I imagine that card is getting ready to come back into the story.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll let you kind of pick up from there.
Yeah. So, and what's wild about that too is when she knocked on the door and gave me this card. This was pure, just like intuition, like God calling her, because I didn't really know her. She didn't really know me, right? So for her to take that step and to be bold enough to do that, just I think says a lot about the fact that there's more at play here, than what meets the eye in terms of like, the Lord calling and being involved in that. But so he locks me out of the house, or locks us out of the house, and we're in the car. At some point, I, work up the nerve to go to a women's shelter. And at the women's shelter, the night that I get there, I go in, and it's like a room full of bunk beds, and I'm the only one that has a baby in this shelter. And the girls, it's late at night, and the girls in there were, again, this is like inner city. They were like, just saying stuff like, "Oh, if that baby cries in the middle of the night, we're gonna throw it out the window," And in that moment, I knew, I was like, "Oh, like I probably can't stay." So I go out to my car, and I'm just kind of like looking through just kind of the belongings that I had in there, and I come across that card that she gave me. And so I went back into the shelter, and I called her because I didn't even have a phone at this point, right? So I called her from the shelter, and she, bless her heart, she immediately meets me, comes to get us, takes us back to her house. And she's an older woman, and then also her husband is there, and he's sick, and so she takes care of him. But she brings us back to her house and just kind of takes us in and starts, taking us to church. And for a couple of weeks there, it felt like, oh man, like maybe there's hope here. And she really loved us. Like just immediately, it was like she loved me like the daughter she never had. And she just took care of us and just, gave us a place. And
How long had it been since you felt
Probably since my dad passed,
Okay.
right? I mean, because I was lucky that I had such a loving
Mhm.
father, so I felt safe at home with him. I mean, I didn't feel safe where we lived, but I
Right.
felt safe at home with him, and so, yeah, it had been since I was 15, I guess.
Yeah.
And, her name is Donna, by the way, if I don't know if she'll ever hear this, but if she does, yeah, she's a godsend, and I still keep in touch with her, but so after this is oh my gosh. After, I guess, a couple of weeks, I wanna say 2 to 3 weeks of being there, I find out I'm pregnant to my husband, right, obviously.
Mhm.
And at that point, I realized, like, I probably can't stay here long term. Like, I need to try to get away from him and keep this child away from him because he was so controlling, and I knew that as soon as he found out, it was just not gonna be good. And so,
What was leaving him like? I mean, what was that? So you're like, 'cause you went to a women's shelter, so I mean,
yeah.
imagine he wasn't like, "Yeah, let me go get you a place," right? So what
Oh,
was
yeah. I mean, I think it took him a bit to find me, right?
okay.
Like, eventually, he figured out where I was, and then him and his family were harassing us at that point. But, again, like, I have to give it to Donna, like, she just endured all of that and just prayed
Yeah,
with me, and
okay.
and I remember her on her knees, in front of the couch, just, like, praying, that the Lord would protect us from this whole
Okay. Is
situation.
he, like, showing up at her house and
He is, like, the neighbors at one point said, that they had the neighbors across the street had just had a new baby, and at
mhm,
one point, they were up in the middle of the night with the baby and saw him looking in windows in the house,
mhm.
and he would show up to church and claim to be a private investigator looking for me, just yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, what do you do now?
So I have the baby, and
Right.
then I move around. I moved a couple of states over, and I got a job. I worked for Verizon in a call center, making $8 an hour, but I loved it, and I was just happy to have work and happy to have friends. I made friends there, and I got an apartment, and it was a small apartment, but it was perfect for us, and I was just so thankful, and the town that I lived in, was a good town, and yeah, we didn't have furniture, but I didn't care. I was just
Yeah,
so
right.
happy, and but there was always this during that time, there was always this looming, like, "Is he gonna find me?"
Yeah,
And also, we were still married,
right.
so that creates a whole other legal aspect of it. But, yeah, it was just constant fear of, like, "Is he gonna find me?" And then eventually, he did, and then it was, getting threats for my life and living in fear and, him filing for custody claiming that I was an alcoholic and just wild things, right? So at that point I sent my oldest son, so my first son, I sent him to Pennsylvania to live with his dad because I just knew that I needed to get through this and I didn't even know if I was safe or if we were safe and so I needed to protect, my
Yeah.
other son as much as I could.
So,
So
how old is your 2nd son when your first son leaves?
just a year, I think,
Mhm.
or maybe under a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Cuz I think my oldest son was 3 when he
Yeah, so you're, like, absolutely heartbroken,
Oh,
I'm sure.
yeah.
I mean, 3 is such a precious age. That
Yeah.
is just
It
like
was hard.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
Yeah. But I didn't even know if I was gonna live to see another day. So I
Yeah,
just
you
there
just
was
had
no
yeah,
it
there was
had
no
to
option.
happen.
Right.
Yeah. So, but at this point, so we're living in this apartment. I'm making $8 an hour, but I have friends at work and one day I am sitting in the government assistance office trying to get daycare assistance, which is a program that helps you pay for daycare. And I got denied for it twice because they said I was over the income limit, right? um,
$8 an hour, yeah.
yeah, $8 an hour. But I did have food stamps, and um, one day I'm sitting in the government assistance office, and at this point, the way it worked was you had to take off work for the whole day. You had to go sit and take a number and hope they call you. But there's
Yeah.
so many people, they may not call you that day. But they did call me on this day. And so I'm arguing with her about the daycare assistance, like I'm upset. But while I was in the waiting room that day, I picked up this magazine, and inside of the magazine there was this article. It was like a DIY of like how to make these cute little like flip-flop cakes, right? So I'm arguing with this lady, and then finally I'm like, "Fine, I'm taking this magazine." She was like
Yeah.
she was like, "Okay, you do you," right? It's like,
Right.
"Okay, fine, I can take it though." She was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So I took it. Um, yeah, so I took it, and a few weeks after that, I we had a potluck at work, and I made these little flip-flop cakes to bring to work that day. And, on this specific day, I was driving to work and I was running out of gas. So I had just dropped my son off. I was running out of gas. I had negative money in my bank account.
Right.
And I think that was my first moment of like, I might be stuck here forever. Like this might be my life. It was that first like victim, like hopeless, like this might be my life.
Yeah.
And I was just hoping to get to work that day, but I look up and I look to my right, and on the billboard, because in my mind I was like, I feel like I'm being called to more, but how? Like there was nothing that made sense about my life. I had no support, nobody to help me, or nothing to stand on that would lead me to believe that I could be more, right? Or do more, or any of those things. I had already made all of these mistakes, just done all of this stupid stuff, and not to mention what I was born into. So I was like, "But how? But how?" And then I look up, and to my right is a billboard, and it says just 2 words that will forever change my life. It says, "But God." And something hit me in that moment that I couldn't explain, 'cause I wasn't really a believer, and I certainly wasn't, like, living in obedience. But I prayed in that moment. I prayed to a God that I didn't even know, that he would just get me to work that day, and he did. I'm like, I can't even make this up. So I get to work that day. I pull in the parking spot. As soon as I get in the parking spot, my car shuts off. I run out of gas.
Made it.
Yeah. But you know
Yeah.
what? At 20, 21 years old, I guess I was then, I just laughed
Yeah.
because I knew that a God had gotten me there. And if a God had gotten me there, he would get me home. And maybe I couldn't see yet how he was going to get me home, but I knew he would.
Mhm.
Um, so I take my little flip-flop cakes into work that day, and I'm just happy as can be, right? I just got my little cakes with me, and,
Yeah.
um, I'm at work that day, and this girl comes up to me, and she says, "Hey, those cakes that you made, those are really cool." She was like, "How much would you charge for something like that?" And I didn't even know. I didn't even know how much, but I gave her an amount, and she paid it, and that's how I got home that day.
Yeah.
So I knew that I was provided for
Mhm.
in some bigger way, right? And so then after that, I made cakes like a crazy woman. Like
Yeah.
I but I didn't have the supplies or the counter space. But do you remember those like wooden TV stands?
Yeah.
Those, yeah. I had some of those
The
that
dinner
have been,
tray.
yeah, the dinner tray.
Yeah.
I had some of those, they have been donated to us, and I use those as counter space.
Uh-huh.
I stacked my cakes on those, and I had baby bottles. I don't know if you know the Dr. Brown baby bottles. They have, like, multiple parts to them, so there's, like, different size
Yeah.
circles, and I used those to cut fondant pieces out,
Nice. That's
and that
awesome.
I
Yeah.
used to decorate the cakes,
Right.
right? And I just started making cakes like crazy, and for years, I would go to work and then come home and put my kids to bed, and then I would be up all night making cakes,
Yeah.
and that was 2010, so that's kinda where it started.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's so true how I think a lot of people like to say, like, you just have to have faith. And honestly, I don't think it matters if you have faith or not, like, God will just show up for you. Because there's
Yeah.
been so many times in my life, right, where I'm like, I didn't have any faith, and I'm like
Yeah.
but he would still show up, and
Right.
I even to this day, like, I mean, same, right? Like, our life paths have been very similar as far as just like needing government assistance, needing help. But, like, well, I worked harder when I needed help than I do now, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
today, like I'm able to just come do a podcast, right? And hear your story. But, during those times when I needed help, I was working my butt off. I was doing whatever I could possibly do. I did concrete, I did roofing, I did siding,
Yeah.
anything that I could do,
Yeah.
to earn $8,
Right.
like the things that I have done for $5 an hour, right? Is just unreal.
Feels like clawing your way through life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But God does always show up. And I still have to remind myself of that today. Like business will, we go through highs and lows, and sometimes I'll have those. I call them tightrope moments. Tightrope moments where you look down, you're like, oh my God, I'm 300 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're just walking along, and then you
Yeah.
just casually look down, and you're like, oh my God, right? Please don't fall. Um,
That's funny. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's
But God does show up. I mean, he
yeah.
he does. I've never gone um, without food, shelter, and there's just always been somebody that's shown up, that slid me a card with their phone number at the right
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So you're working at Verizon. You're in the call center. How old are you at this point?
2021.
Okay,
21.
so
I turned
21.
21. I worked there. Yeah.
So very young adult.
Yeah.
You figured out the art of one-bedroom apartment, TV stand,
Yeah.
cake operation,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, what happens with your ex-husband? What
Yeah, so the short story is that there's basically a custody battle for almost 5 years, I guess.
that's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, but eventually it just ended where he is not a part of, a part of the picture, I guess, without saying too much, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so you guys go through a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of emotional abuse,
Oh,
and
yeah.
usually with those type of men,
Harassment.
there's yeah,
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
constant.
There was one point I actually where they were when I say they, it was him and he had like a girlfriend, but also his family. They were harassing me so much. They had obtained my medical records from my OBGYN
Oh
and
my
posted
gosh.
them online. And yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
somebody called
insane,
pretending to be me or how that happened, but yeah,
right?
yeah, just stuff like that.
So what's next, right? We're 21, trying to figure it out. You've You've got this cake thing down, right? And you've got some additional income starting to come in, and it sounds like that's probably your first glimmer of light.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the first just, like, hopeful thing, and
Mhm.
it gave me purpose
I have
too.
something,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
right, and then I started collecting these names that were better names, right? Slowly, like Gifted and, all the,
mhm,
like, more positive things for myself than the things that I had
right.
previously, come from. But it was still, quite a journey from there until I finally, submitted my life to Christ in 2017. But in 2017, I, fully surrendered and was baptized, and then um, took a little bit while from, for to actually live in obedience after that. But as I'm, continuing that journey, I'm realizing that when we make that choice, when we give our life to Him, and when we're walking in obedience, we are fully redeemed. And so if it's but God, the phrase but God shows up 40 to 60 times in scripture, depending on which translation.
Oh,
But what's interesting to me is it doesn't say and God. So that means I can't hold on to these names. I can't hold on to all this junk, all this crap, and also be living with and fully for him in that purpose, because it's but, right?
mhm,
So the day we choose redemption as part of who we are, it cancels out everything else. And then when we start making our decisions and operating from a place of those things that he says we are, man, that's when things change.
yeah. So what does it look like from 2010 to 2017? What life events are you going through?
Yeah. So in 20 2013, 2014, I got remarried.
Mhm.
So I married somebody who's in the military, which is what brought me here. And then, we had a baby. And then shortly after we had our child, he had been deployed and he was a pilot too. So I think he saw a lot. He kind of went through a lot while he was deployed. And when he came back, he was just gone. Like he was different and disconnected and he just didn't want to be married anymore. So, and I was also not helping because I was frustrated with him. And so, we would argue and so he quit and we got divorced. And then I was really lost after that for a while because I thought that I loved him, and I thought that that was going to be my family the rest of my life. But, this is another God moment, so I think that was a point for me that was really low. I was feeling suicidal at that point after that divorce, and I
Is that the
was
first time?
that I can remember. I think it's the first time I actually ever felt like
Mhm.
I really wanna quit, like, just in a really, really low place.
Yeah.
Um,
And I asked that our last episode was about suicide awareness, and that
okay.
was something that we talked about heavily was what that's like,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, it's not something we like post on Facebook, right? Like,
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like killing myself today,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
It's something that people keep buried inside. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's good to talk about and and to
Yeah.
express what it's like to not have hope. Because I
Yeah.
think ultimately it's you're not thinking of killing yourself. You're thinking of how do I live with no hope,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
It's
Like, this
it's
is
not
it.
like this is what I want to do. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another option
Yeah.
because life without hope is like life without water. It's very difficult to
It
live.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of hopelessness,
Mhm.
and I was at the gym one day. This was in 2000 late 2017, I guess. So I'm at the Y here in Richmond Hill, and I'm in that mode, right? Like, I'm just like, I just don't even wanna be here anymore, and I'm also looking for a job because I had just gotten divorced, and I was a stay-at-home mom and didn't know what I was gonna do. And then this is just this moment gets me so emotional. So I get approached by Chandy Hupman, who I had seen several times there, never talked to her, but I knew her face, right?
Mhm.
But on this day, she approaches me and she starts talking to me, and then she says, "Well, hey, my husband and I, we have a real estate company here in town. We're always looking for new team members. Like, would you be interested in applying?" And I was like, "Yes." Like, yes. And so I did, and they have like a really long interview process, but I went through the process and they hired me, and I think that was a really pivotal year for me because it was the first time that I had experienced anything in the personal growth world.
Mhm.
It was the first time I had experienced people who were just so humble and just such good people, and just watching them and seeing how they ran their business and managed their team, and I worked there for a year, but in that year, man, I it just changed my life. Like, we went to
Yeah, that's
seminars and read
incredible.
books, and that after that, I was like, I wanna start my own business, right?
Yeah.
I've always been kinda driven by autonomy, hence, like, running away when I was younger and all of that. I know you said for you, it came from a place of, like, wanting to feel seen.
Mhm.
For me, I think it was always a place of I wanted my independence. I want autonomy, to
Mhm.
be alone, right? To do what I want. But yeah, so I left there and decided I was gonna start my own business. And then in 2020, I started Blush Bakes. And yeah, now we're a five-star luxury cake business. And um, we had our first six-figure year in 2023, which was a lot for me for where I came from.
Yeah.
And then I yeah, and we've won awards, and then at some point I was like, "Okay, what's next?" Right?
Yeah.
So then I started another business, and
Yeah,
yeah.
so it sounds like, Like when Chandy came along, that was
Mhm.
like you're out of gas,
Yeah.
right? And then
Mhm.
somebody walked up, it's like, "Hey, can you make me a cake?"
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Mhm.
and you got some gas money to get home.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's incredible how we go through these things in life that they actually build us to be a better version of who we are, of what's coming,
Mhm.
right? So, like, a lot of those hardships, the having like, being pinned down and all of your hair cut off,
Mhm.
right? To teach
Yeah.
you to lose everything, because I
Yeah.
imagine at that time, that was probably a major loss.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like whenever you're losing everything emotionally, sometimes, the physical look, or like just, having your hair. I mean, that might sound, maybe it might sound kind of silly to some people. Like, I,
No,
I
as a woman,
understand that's,
it's
yeah, that's
yeah.
huge. Yeah. And to
Yeah.
lose that would be like losing everything. So it's like, imagine,
It's
had
dehumanizing.
that not
Yeah.
happen, the lesson of being able to get over that is, I imagine, probably what's helped you continue to just overcome the constant loss of everything. Sounds like you've had a couple of, like, total resets in your life
Yeah.
and had to regrow yourself and rebuild yourself and
Yeah, I think, the easy thing would be staying a victim,
Mhm,
right? And granted, like, I made some of those choices myself, right? Like, I made poor choices, but, some of that also I was born into, and some of the things happened to me, and I think the antidote to victimhood is acceptance, and so it's like the second when something happens to us, or even we made a mistake and now we're paying the price of it. It's so easy for us to stay in that what it was before or what it could have been before this thing happened. But the second we can lean into acceptance is when that shift starts to happen. It's when we can say, like, for example, if your house burns down, for the next few days or for the next few weeks, you're going to be in a mental place of like, man, your mind's gonna be in what it was before, all the things you lost, what could have been, the injustice, the unfairness, right? We get stuck in that. Especially me, I have a huge intolerance for injustice. Um, but the moment we can stop and say, "Oh, wait, this happened. It is what it is." You just accept reality for what it is.
mhm,
That's when the shift happens, and it allows you to start taking the steps to move forward and stop
yeah,
looking back at what could have been or should have been or would have been, because you can't change. It doesn't do us any good to stay there, you know?
yeah. So what beliefs about yourself would you say you had to let go of, you had to cut off? I mean, what were your
I mean, all of those,
Mhm,
right? Especially as somebody who doesn't I think, like, I built blush bakes and I built all of that, the cakes and all of those things in those earlier years without a anybody there who was saying, "You can do it," or
mhm,
"I believe in you." There was none of that. There was people in my past telling me I was gonna end up just like my mom, or,
mhm,
there was no positivity or building up, and so it had to be me. Like, I had to make the choice that what used to be is no longer, and I have to keep moving forward.
yeah,
And there will always be those people who try to pull you back to remind you of the things you did or where you used to be. But I think when you're fully walking in grace and redemption, you understand that, like, yeah, I did those things or those things happened. Like, acceptance. It is what it
yeah,
is.
right, there's no way of changing it.
Yeah,
So what are your words now?
my words.
Mhm. What are your what are your words that what are your labels?
Oh, the names. Oh, yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think they're the ones that the Lord gives all of us, right? Chosen, redeemed, love, all of those things.
mhm,
It's it's a beautiful thing. But I think the most beautiful one of all of those to me is redeemed. Because the fact that we could go from that to here is the contrast. Like, there's no way. I even have people in my life that knew me before who were like, How?" And I'm like, but God." That is the only explanation. I mean, there's no like one mentor or one person or one thing, right? It's
Yeah, a
just
collection,
God.
right?
It just is. And like you said, in those moments where we're not choosing him, we're not walking in obedience, but he's still giving us his grace and his
Yeah,
mercy.
still there,
Whew,
right?
that's the thing that brings me to tears
Right.
too.
What would you say are the things that I think where a lot of people struggle when they're coming from their older life to their newer life are the things that come back up, right? The thoughts, the tightrope moments, right? Where like
Mm,
you look down and you see what are the things that you still struggle with. And I'm asking this question because you have an incredible story and you make an impact. Like you are intentional about making an impact on the people that are around you,
yeah.
right? So, like, I feel like there was probably a point in your life where you were very withdrawn, or like
Mhm.
you didn't want to be exposed and you didn't want
Yeah.
to be seen,
Mhm.
and now you are very much seen,
Open.
right?
Yeah.
Like you are a big part. I mean, I think anyone that's part of our community here, like at least has heard of you, right?
Yeah.
Or has met you or,
Yeah.
sees your stories. Um, what are some of the things that you still battle with that come up? And how do you deal through that? Like, how do you work through those tightrope moments?
Sure. I mean, for one thing, I think the one thing I battle with most right now as I'm learning to share my story is
Mhm.
how it affects the people that were a part of that story that weren't such a good part of that story, right? Like there's that fear
Right.
of that Satan places in me of like, well, what are they gonna say or what are they gonna do? So there's fear. I think fear is a huge thing that comes up for me. But also, I think the more you talk about this tightrope, I think for me at least, the more that I walk in obedience, so the more that my actions and my choices align with my values and what I believe, the tighter that rope is for me.
Okay.
So it starts to loosen when we start to make choices or do things or say things that go against our values and who we
Mhm.
say are, and we're not
Right.
living in
What
our
you know is
integrity.
right. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like every time you have one of those thoughts, it just gets a little more slack and a little more
Right.
slack.
Yeah.
As long as you stay in that faith and
And integrity, then the tightrope
yeah, and
is
walk in your purpose, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And even then it's like, well, if I fall, I fall. I
Yeah.
mean,
What has been the what do you personally gain from what you do professionally? So for me, I'll give an example. I love helping people with the roofs. I mean, Ridgeway Roofing was never there was never a point where I was like, we're going to be a multi-million-dollar company, right? It
okay.
was like, I'm going to go do a roof this week.
That's so cool.
That was
Yeah.
like the original. I'm just, I got to figure out how to pay like our mortgage when I started Ridgeway was like $720 a month,
Okay.
right? So I'm like,
Okay.
I got to
Yeah.
figure out how to come up with
Yeah.
$720.
Right.
There was never any kind of big dream or I'm going to grow some. I'm not a businessman, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I enjoy being. I've learned to become one, but that's
Okay.
not where it started. So I love roofing because I enjoy being able to solve problems that people can't fix for themselves, right?
That
So
makes sense.
most people, especially like when I go to an elderly lady's house, this is like my perfect. I love this customer where it's single older lady that is just struggling,
Mm.
and I can turn her most difficult, stressful, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna pay for this or fix it?"
Aw.
And then I can just go fix it
Yeah.
and do it for free, right? And just be
Yeah.
like, "That was
Yeah.
actually really simple. I already
Aw.
fixed it. You're good."
Yeah.
I love being able to give that to people, right? Because I can kinda see them like, "Oh, thank God," right? Like, I love that. So
Yeah.
for you, there's a lot of passion in what you do.
Uh-huh.
Uh 'Cause I would imagine you're not just, like, following recipes and like, "Oh god, I gotta make another cake."
Yeah.
You're, like you're in it, right?
Yeah.
So, what does
Mhm.
that represent for you? What do you get out of it outside of financials?
Sure. I mean, I just have so much gratitude, right? I think
Mhm,
when you can probably relate to this. When you come from where we came from, just to wake up every day and not only be able to work and to live, but to be able to do something we love to
mhm.
do and provide and not have to go sit at a 9 to 5. For me, as someone who's driven by autonomy, I'm just grateful that I get to work for myself,
Mhm.
and also just sharing art. I mean, I think I'm an artist by nature, and so that's my art form is cakes, and being able to share that with people is a joy. I think I'm reaching a point now where I'm starting to feel like I want to grow beyond, the cakes and the service industry and start working more on impact, which is where Big Sis Sunday
Yeah,
comes
I think
in.
that's great.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that now? A couple
Ooh.
months, right?
Yeah, it's still in the early stages for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has definitely been it's been great hearing your story. Not just hearing your story, but sort of watching the storyline because it's very similar to a lot of the other people that have been on Between the Highs, where
Okay.
we go through these. That's where the name comes from, Between the Highs. We go through these peaks and valleys in life, and we figure it out, and it's just about continuing that left foot, right foot.
Yeah.
So, one more question that I want to ask: You're and I wanna tie this into Big Sis, right? For a lot living in South Georgia, there's not many people like, we pass by 100 churches
Mm.
going to Parker's and back, right? I mean, there's a
Mhm.
church on every corner.
Yeah.
There's the idea of God is everywhere,
Okay.
right? The people that are looking for that, I guess especially the ladies, the females that are looking for that, but they're just not anywhere even close to being, "I'm gonna go to church and go get saved tomorrow."
Okay.
What does it look like, what are the steps prior to that, right? Because that's big, like, there's
Yeah.
a whole road you have to walk down, I feel like, for
Yeah, and
me,
I'm still walking it. I'm still
right?
yeah, every day.
But the journey before you even walk through the doors of a
Yeah.
church, right? So, I'm not asking you to remove God by any means, that's not the question,
Right.
but outside of obedience to God,
Yeah.
what advice do you give to help people kinda get out of that hole?
I think that's a really good question. But I think as we've kind of moved through this conversation here and you've said some things and I've said some things, maybe it would be identifying like if they look back on their lives and everything they've been through, identifying those business card moments, I
Mhm.
guess, right? The moments where you knew that there was no other explanation other than something bigger. Another thing that I would suggest, actually, this happened for me recently, because as I'm verbalizing my story,
Mhm.
like I've always loved writing, but learning to verbalize has been hard for me. So I'm saying it out loud a lot. The very first time, so I did a keynote speech this past weekend where I shared my testimony in front of some women. The very first time that I said that out loud, that I said my story out loud, I bawled. I texted Brian. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like God is just woven throughout all of this." And like, how did I knew it, but I never saw it or felt it in this way. So maybe it's like just go through your story. Just verbalize your entire story up until where you are. And I dare you to not find God in it, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's
And
great.
then yeah, and then but there will always be, I think, people around you. For me, it was a group of women in 2017 who were ministering to me and, like, sort of bringing me to the Lord. That was a slow process, right?
Mhm.
Especially coming from where I came from, but there will always be people in your life like that who show up. So maybe just pay attention to that. Just kinda take a note of that and be like, "Oh, is this God trying to reach me?" You know?
Yeah, I
It
think
doesn't
that's
hurt to
great.
say yes. It doesn't hurt to go. He's not gonna, strike you with lightning when you walk
Right, yeah.
in. What's the harm?
Yeah, just be aware of, those moments. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they definitely I mean, yes, I think all of us, even people who are, non-believers, I think still experience those moments of,
Yeah.
like, "Well, that was weird," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think it's the little moments. It's focus on the little moments, the joys, the laughter, the love, the friendships, like anything good in this world comes from God. We cannot have that good without him because otherwise it would just all be I'll be evil, right? So maybe just focusing on the good parts and then paying attention to those little moments where he shows up, where the business card moment or the moment that somebody shared something with you about Jesus, right? And I know it's like it's such a hard place to be, but I hope to be an example of somebody who can not only come from a really bad situation, but can also make a really a large stretch of bad decisions and then come back from that, right? Because like today, I'm I'm obviously not perfect, but I'm walking in obedience in that like my heart is the Lord's. I'm waiting for marriage, so, like, there's no sex before marriage for me, and that's a huge one, I think, because when we as women, like, when we have sex, we're giving biologically, we're giving ourselves to somebody, and that brings us further away from God.
Yeah.
So, I think, if anything, I guess what I'm saying is, like, hopefully I can continue to get better and be an example for women who feel like there's no hope, feel like they've come from a hopeless situation or made a bunch of choices and it's too late. Like it's just not. If you're here, if you're still alive, it's just not too late. And the way that your life shifts and gets better and changes, the more that you choose that path, it's incredible.
Yeah. And it can change so quick,
It can.
like
Yeah.
so fast. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm grateful that you came and you shared your story. You have definitely not only endured, but you have conquered a lot in your life.
Yeah.
Um, you have a lot of strength. Uh, you've, s- I imagine you've seen things that most people haven't.
Mm,
And I think whenever you have those visuals, right? Like we've all heard stories, but when you have the visuals of evil, those are moments that are hard to forget.
right.
And you've been able to rise above that and rise above the doubt and rise above all the labels, right? The negative
Mhm.
labels.
Yeah.
If you were to go back knowing what you know now, and you could sit down with that 19-year-old Reva that had never baked a cake and just offer a moment of advice, what would that sound like?
I think one of the biggest words that comes up for me in that moment is shame. Shame is just such a destructive thing that we feel as humans. And I think at 19 years old, I probably didn't think there was any other side of that. So I would probably tell myself that all of these things that you've done or been through, I would walk myself through how to get past that shame. And I think a huge part of that for me is just owning it. So, yes, I did this thing. I made this mistake or this thing happened. And it goes back to that victim, like not being a victim. It's just accepting. It's not only accepting some things that happened to us, but the things that we did. And you just make better choices moving forward and you walk in that integrity. And the more you walk in alignment with what is good and what is true, the more that tightrope gets tighter and you're walking more steady and making better choices, which affect everyone around you. But I think I would probably just walk myself through that shame. And like, if Jesus isn't holding on to our choices, why are we? Like these people on earth that might judge or say things or call names or tell us things, the lies Satan tells us, these are all so temporary. Like at the end of all of this, none of that exists. Why are we so worried about that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
take it so serious, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. I appreciate you being on the show and for telling your story.
Thank you for having me.
Between the Highs podcast is produced inside Story Oak Studios. StoryOakStudios.com.